Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast today with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by the Nenagh Guardian Head of Sport, Shane Brophy, and Paul Carroll from Tip FM. Men, how are we doing this morning?
Morning, Shane.
Jeez, it was a fairly busy weekend. I was in Burrislee for the Thurles against Nenagh game, and to be fair to Thurles, Shane, they were full value for their win, 127 to 123 for a finish. Dominated the first half, should have been more ahead at half time. Only for a raft of wides, probably would have cruised to victory. To be fair to Nenagh, they made a bit of a comeback, but the better team won and Thurles pulled away towards the end. How impressed were you?
Yeah, no, like I think it was. I think the photo was doing the rounds of Paul Maher at the final whistle, leaping for joy. I think it just showed you what this win probably sort of meant for Thurles. I know it was a knockout game, but I just think they needed to back up the win over Burrislee and the wins over Clonoulty. Like, they're developing a bit of consistency now, and like, there's no doubt about it. Like, they were full value for the win, and I suppose that first 10 or 15 minutes is where they laid the platform for it, going 9 points to 4 up, and Nenagh were always chasing it after that. And in fairness to them, they made a great comeback. Like, brilliant goal from Salma Farrell. God almighty, right in the corner. Like, he's living up to his status as a prospect.
Yeah, he's promising, isn't he?
But I think I love the description of your mother chatting about the game and our game on Monday. She'd nearly got a job on the podcast now. I think in terms of Nenagh, like, it was too easy for Thurles to get scores when they needed them, if you know what I meant. Like, even when Nenagh got back to a point, Thurles were able to get 1 or 2 without much pressure being put on them. Like, so, and that was that. If they're from a Nenagh point of view, that's the thing you'd be frustrated about when you had Thurles on the ropes. It was too easy for them to get a good puck out away or go along, and the break falls into their hand. So, but look, Thurles full value for 12 different scorers. Another player, own person, coming off the bench. I think they brought on five subs, and like, to show you the depth they have, and like, they're Thurles what momentum now are a hard animal to stop.
Yeah, Paul, just for anyone who missed it, the mother said about Nenagh that they played like gentlemen in that game there. So not really trying to sow the boot in here,
No.
but you get the message. They weren't really horsing into Thurles, and I don't know, Thurles aren't going to exactly have bruised bodies all week after that game, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I can see that point. All right, like Thurles, as kind of Shane mentioned, they always had an extra gear. They could always kind of push the lead back out to 3, 4, 5 points much easier than Nenagh could sew it back. But I still think Nenagh gave it a very good goal. Like, down 8 points, kind of halfway through the second half, you kind of thought this is going to just dwindle out for a finish. But that Sam O'Farrell goal, they got 2 or 3 points on the spin after that, brought them right back into the game. But yeah, they'll be disappointed with how the game ended. They kind of, once they got it back to 1 point, I think was a Keane Crowley had a chance to level it, and it dropped into the goalie's hands. And Thurles, in fairness to him, just pushed on, and that's a scary prospect for everyone else, the fact that they were able to come through that. But I was just kind of, someone who's going to have to do something when they play Thurles with Ronan Maher, because he's just has the freedom of the park when he's out there on the field on the edge of the D. Like, any ball that went into Jake Morris was 50-50 at best between him and Paul Maher, and then it would drop down between him and Ronan Maher would come in and sweep up. So I don't know if teams are going to push someone up on him or what, but if not, they're going to have to deliver the ball better, because I'd say Jake was very frustrated with some of the ball going in, because any low ball that went in front of him one-on-one, he was able to win it and put it over the bar, win a free or something. So they'll just be annoyed with how they used Jake, or how they kind of misused Jake in that game. But it's a different kind of loss. I suppose last year and some other years when Nenagh have lost in the county championship, it's been kind of because, you know, they might have just thrown the game away or not shown up on the day or something like that. But I felt that was different. I felt that's still a good performance and a good young team that are coming, and we'll learn from that defeat going forward.
Okay, Shane, I'm going to ask you a bit more about Nenagh in a second, but I'll just read out the quarter-final fixtures for anyone who has been hiding under a rock there for the last couple of days. So on Friday, Killadangan are going to meet Holy Cross Ballycahill. That's going to be in Semple Stadium at 7:45. Saturday sees Lockmore Castleiney do battle with Ross Gray. That's 3:30 p.m. And there's a double header on Sunday, starting with the 2 o'clock fixture between Toomevara and Clonoulty Rossmore, followed by Drummond against Thurles Sarsfields at 3:45, which is an all-mid clash. But just to come back to Nenagh again, I never felt like they did a whole lot to upset the apple cart of Thurles. And like Paul mentioned there, Ronan Maher was at his ease throughout the entire game, and they were effectively able to play 2v1 and at sometimes 3v1 because Dennis Maher was trying to hold the square. So you had Paul Maher, Ronan Maher, and Dennis Maher, a sea of Mahers all around Jake Morris. Maybe they could have switched his position. Maybe they could have moved Paddy Murphy upfield. It's pretty clear that Barry Heffernan isn't back to 100%, and putting him out of position at centre forward and full forward at times he drifted in towards. It just didn't work. So could Nenagh have done something different?
I suppose they could, but I think that they nailed their colours to the mast this year with Paddy Murphy as a defender and Barry Heffernan more as a half forward. Okay, I don't think they were ever going to change that for one game. Look, I suppose, when you're getting to this stage of a championship, you need everyone. And look, there's no doubt. I think that particularly two of the three suspensions, like Tommy Heffernan and Ben West. Like Ben West is a big impact player off the bench. He's very, very good at carrying the ball forward. And we saw Cian Crowley was very good off the bench, really brought a lot of energy to the Nenagh team. And Tommy Heffernan's always good for maybe a couple of points. And he would have, I always felt without, Nenagh had no second inside forward to even take the focus off Jake Morris to a small bit. And I thought Jake did pretty well, 4 points in play, even though he was effectively double marked. And look, some of the times the quality of the ball that was going in was very, very poor. A lot of the time over his head. It was well-meaning, but just badly executed. And I do think there's no doubt about when you're getting to the latter stages of a championship, you need to have everything going right. And 3 guys being suspended, it isn't a help. And look, I think Nenagh have an opening there to go on and win a county. They'd be hoping maybe next year to have Conor McCarthy back from a cruciate. Adam Grattan missed this year with a cruciate. Killian Malone missed this year with a cruciate. So if they get those 3 boys back, maybe get 1 or 2 maybe good young lads off their minor team. I still think they have a very, very strong squad. But I just think the margins are so small that if you Thurles were able to bring 5 subs off the bench that all played a part. Nenagh, probably in terms of Cian Crowley's probably the only one. You just small things like that, and Nenagh just lost a bit of momentum in the group stages. You really don't want to be using that ticket of being a divisional champion. It means you've had a bad run in the group, and that Mullinahone game was ultimately where probably Nenagh's. It just shows the importance of the group stage. It still does. Even if you're a divisional championship, the group stage is still so important.
Yeah, and then the fact that Thurles didn't even use Paddy Creedon, who I believe it was, no secret that it was a bit of a disciplinary thing as well. That bodes really well for Pádraig Maher and really strengthens his hand going forward, especially this weekend. So Clonoulty then against Mullinahone in the other game. We'll come on to each of the quarterfinals individually in a little while. But Paul, it was 123 to 120. Good opening 6 minutes for Clonoulty. They very much got on top. Conor Hammersley continued his good form with 1-3 after returning to the team. I saw good flashes from him against Killadangan as the game went on. That's a very good win for Clonoulty. And for Mullinahone, after a good season, that's a disappointing way to go out.
Yeah, but in fairness to Mullinahone, they were out of that game 4 or 5 times and found their way back somehow each time. So they'll be obviously disappointed to go out, but again, a good performance by them. For Clonoulty Rossmore, as you mentioned, Conor Hammersley being back was huge for them, just because it allows them to do so much more with their team. They were kind of playing with Danny Slattery and Robert Doyle in the full forward line previously, but now that Conor Hammersley is back, they're able to push Danny Slattery back out the field, and Robert Doyle was brilliant full forward. He scored 4 or 5 points, but he won about 2 or 3 frees in the first kind of 15 minutes where a ball is going into the corner and he's been held on the 14 trying to make a run out. So he was really impressive. But Conor Hammersley coming back 1-3 he got in the day, but just really lively. Cathal Burke looked really lively as well. So they looked much better than I'd seen them 2 or 3 times throughout the year, but they looked way better against Mullinahone. For Mullinahone, Mikey O'Shea was just brilliant for them. He scored 1-5. I think in the championship in general, the 4 county championship games, he has 4-13. So I know he's left hand on top, and that kind of looks better when you're kind of passing the eye test, but 4-13 from 4 games is serious going. He's a Tip senior footballer, but I wouldn't be surprised if Liam Cahill is maybe giving him a call this offseason.
What do you reckon, Shane, on that point, and just Clonoulty, how impressive they were?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Mikey O'Shea, like the fact that he would have had 2 years S&C work done with the hurlers, like if he did get the call, he has I suppose he's already done a lot of groundwork. I think he's about 24 now. I think he was minor in 2018, I think, or 2017. So he's sort of a good age, like so. And to talk Clonoulty were deserving winners. Probably always just seemed to have the game in hand, even though it was tight enough for a finish, but just had that greater ability to work the ball into space and get the scores. And you can see the impact of Conor Hammersley. Again, I thought he was solid in the first game back against Kildangan, but you can see he was a lot sharper last weekend, and he just drifts into those little pockets of space, and they're able to find him. And as Paul said, like Danny Slattery was able to go back to the backs and maybe just beaver around that half back line midfield area. And like Robert Doyle is a player now. I think there's a great chance he could be drafted into a tip squad. And like in fairness, like he's played underage as a full back, but there's something about it. I remember, I think that night against Sarsfields, where I don't think he scored, but God, he gave the Turles full back an absolute going over, like in terms of ball winning and harassing, and he could be just one of those guys you could mold into a very, very effective forward at inter-county level. He looks like a guy that has ferocious enthusiasm for work and the ability to learn, and like to go from full back to full forward and be a very, very effective. It's that to me that this is a guy you could mold together very well. Like so I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he's a guy that maybe gets a look into. I suppose having your own clubman in TJ Ryan as a selector will help too. Like so, but yeah, no, like I think a good win for Clonoulty. Like it just gets that taste of not 3 games without a win out of their mouth. And like they're into a quarter final now, and like I think they'll fancy their chances going further. Look, there's no reason why they couldn't do a killer one and just get on a bit of a bandwagon and go the whole way. Like there's like they do have, I suppose they do have a lot of experience in that side and plenty of youth as well.
Yeah, Quirky 1980 says Mikey O'Shea was under 21 last year.
Well, to be, I know he was. I think he was minor. He was minor one of with Tommy Dunn the year Tommy was with, so about 18. So he'd be what? Be at least 23. I'd say it was 2021 when he was under 21. All right, like so.
Yeah. Keep the comments coming in. Let us know what you think. Who's going to win the quarterfinals this weekend, and also any players that you think would have caught Liam Cahill's eyes. Just a reminder that the Nenagh Guardian is out today in all local stores. Plenty of the build-up coming up for the weekend's action. Let's start off with Friday's fixture, Paul. Kildangan against Holy Cross Ballycahill. I can't think when they last played. Have they played in recent seasons, Paul? It doesn't come to mind, but it should be a tasty fixture.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they have in recent years, but yeah, kind of Kildangan will go in as favourites, I'd have to imagine. But Holy Cross, it's been a strange group stage for them. They beat Upperchurch on the first weekend. Then they're beaten by a point by Lockmore in that game with the scoreboard issue. And then they lost to Templederry. So they're not coming in here with the best of momentum, shall we say. But they're coming up against Kildangan. They'll have nothing to fear. Like this is their first quarterfinal appearance, I'd say, in a good few years. Kildangan, though, now I just feel that they're kind of priming now. They've been off last 3 weeks, I'm sure, and will be ready to go. They'll be favourites going into the game. The last time they were in Semple Stadium was that massive win they had over Thurles, so they've a good omen there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Holy Cross kept it close, but I would be surprised if Kildangan were to lose this game.
Yeah, Shane, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I think Holy Cross have enough hurling ability to perform well in this game. Like they have nothing to lose. Like they've already I don't know what their target was this year. I'm sure it was at least get to a quarter final and get out of that group stage, which was their I suppose their glass ceiling for a while. So they've got through. And I suppose as long as their management say, look, lads, you're this is where you should be, and go out and express yourselves. And they've scored a lot in the group stages, and I suppose for the problem is they've conceded a lot too. And I suppose up against a Kildangan team that have 6 very good scoring forwards, they're really going to have to try and keep things as tight as they can. But I'd be surprised if Kildangan haven't maybe the last 3 weeks, really knuckle down now to try and find another level and focus like that to get back to and win that county championship again, win a second one for this group of players. Like, and you think one county championship for all the hurling they've done, particularly since 2016, is a poor return. So like I would fancy Killadangan to get through on Friday night with maybe 4 or 5 pints of spare.
I mean, in terms of Holy Cross, though, how do they make sure that Brian O'Mara does dominate this game? Because Killadangan will look to avoid him, and at the other end, make sure that Cathal Barrett can have an impact. I wouldn't be shocked if there was there should most likely will be a man-marking job on him, Shane.
I don't foresee Holy Cross going to a situation where you bring Cathal back to the backs. I think that would be raising the white flag straight away. Like, you're changing your setup to play an opponent. I don't know, Killadangan will be favourites, but I think.
Sorry, I mean that he'll be man marked by.
No, Cathal. If he plays centre forward, I doubt if it's Joe Gallagher wouldn't be a man marking centre back unless it's not really Killadangan style. I think to go man mark, and I suppose they could put David Sweeney on him, but David has played inside in the corner back, so I think they'll keep their back six I think they'll keep their back six in place for the early stages anyway, Killadangan. Like, so I suppose, look, I think the big thing will be how Holy Cross can get Brian O'Mara to influence the game at centre back, and who maybe would Killadangan maybe look at maybe starting Willie Connors at 11 and just give Brian O'Mara something to think about. Because like if Willie starts at 11 and drifts into pockets of space, or even Billy Seymour, who's played 11, like that gives, instead of Brian having been able to sit, he knows he has a problem, but you can't let Willie or Billy Seymour drift into 5 or 6 yards of space to pick up the ball.
Yeah, Paul, any particular players you see having an impact in this game?
Well, Brian O'Mara is probably the one that sticks out. Obviously, he's probably the best player on the field as of now, and Cathal Barrett will be huge. Like, I'm just going through it there. Like, I don't know who Killadangan would put on Cathal Barrett if he was in that kind of half-forward position. As Shane was saying, you wouldn't really have Joe Gallagher on him, so that'll be an interesting matchup.
Alan Flynn?
Possibly, yeah. Maybe Alan Flynn, yeah, if he's more towards the middle of the field. But that's going to be an interesting matchup. But yeah, for Killadangan, like, Billy Seymour has been way better this year than he was last year when he came back from America. So I'm sure the 3 weeks off for all the Killadangan lads, they're going to be primed coming into this. Probably Sean Hayes as well, just for his pace in the big open Semple Stadium. He kind of causes a lot of damage when he's playing there in the big open spaces. But yeah, Alan Flynn has been very good as well. So Killadangan just have a more settled team in terms of they're very experienced. They've all played multiple times in knockout games in Semple Stadium, so they won't be overawed by it by any means. Not saying that Holy Cross will either, but they probably just have more players akin to this level in terms of the knockout stages of the county championship. But as I said at the start, like, Holy Cross, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a close game, but I would be surprised if they were to go on and win it. But that's just how I see it going on Friday night.
Yeah, a couple of more comments in from Quirky 1980. O'Shea, O'Farrell, Doyle, Luke Shanahan, all great young players that could be moulded by Cathal. And then in terms of the match on Friday, Holy Cross defence has really struggled in the stadium over the past 2 years. Would you agree with that, Shane?
I still think they're conceding a lot, but they're scoring a lot. Like, they're a pure hurling team. Like, and I suppose, look, they're finding their feet, and like, I think there's no doubt their best years are coming. Like, they had a great minor team last year, and they have another one coming this year. Like, a few more. I think a lot of those minors will be coming on stream, I think, next year. Like, so, like, I think there's definitely brighter days coming for Holy Cross. Like, I maybe this year could be a year too soon at senior level. I think their juniors are already in a county quarter final as well. It just shows you that the club is in rude health.
Okay, well then we'll look at the Saturday fixture then. Lockmore doing battle with Ross Gray. I mean, it will come to your power rankings in a while, Shane, but it's going to be hard to imagine that you're going to go against Lockmore here.
No. It's strange. It's I think 3 of the 4 quarterfinals, I think, have pretty strong favourites in them. And this is one of them. Like, Lockmore, seasoned team, like, they just know what they have to do. I suppose rare enough for Rockmore the last few years. They got a weekend off last week. I'm sure they didn't know really what to do, like, so they had no preliminary quarter final and things like that. So look, I'm sure that get them a chance maybe to just refocus again and get refresh. And I just think the fascinating thing for me is how I suppose Roscrea sort of play a footballing style, a very possession based around the half back line, 2 men inside trying to work the ball through the lines. Like that's something Lockmore would easily do themselves playing football as well. So like they'll be ready to cope with that. So like I think that the thing for Roscrea have got to be so efficient in front of goals. They can't afford to hit double-digit wides if they want to win this game. They have to take every chance that comes their way, which means Luke Cashin's got to nail every free he's got. Like they're. I don't think that Roscrea will change their style of play, but I did think maybe towards the end of the Toomey Vara match when they've been a bit more direct, they carried a bit more of a threat, But I think there's no doubt. I think Roscrea will need everything to go right for them on Saturday to win. But you definitely think a lot more strong favours to progress from this one.
Yeah, Paul, can the likes of Evan Fitzpatrick, Alan Tynan, Luke Cashin, as Shane mentioned, can they get enough ball here to trouble Luke or Lockmore?
They'll have to, really. That's the only way they're going to win this game, if those lads and even Shane Fletcher kind of finds the form he had against Killer One in that game and bag a few goals. So they'll probably need it. It's just Lockmore are so comfortable on the ball as a team, very familiar with playing big games in Semple Stadium. Roscrea had a good run of it last year down in Semple Stadium as well, even in the Munster Championship. So they'll be looking forward to going down here on Saturday. But yeah, they'll just need kind of everything to go their way. Lockmore were winning, pulling up against Upperchurch, and now they've had time to rest, which, as Shane mentioned, isn't something that they often get. So I'm sure they made good use of it. But yeah, with all the McGraths, we all know that the Lockmore team at this stage, and even with some of the Connollys back, like Ed Connolly has been brilliant this year, and they had Kieran Connolly come on in that game against Upperchurch. So really interesting to see, is he back to near full fitness yet, having the bit of a break. But yeah, Roscrea, like they've been really good. They've got some brilliant players around the field. I thought Dan Ryan has been really good in the half back line for them. So I just think it could be a step too far, but they've had a brilliant season coming up from the Premier Intermediate to get into a quarter final. It is a brilliant achievement on its own, and they can just have a go at it here on Saturday. I don't think many people will be expecting Roscrea to win, and that's a very good place to be going into a quarter final.
Okay, so
I don't see them being blown out, because I think they're very compact in defence. Roscrea, they'll try and cut down the space maybe for Lockmore to pick off long range scores. I think Lockmore will win, but I don't foresee it being a one-sided game.
Yeah, I'd be going with Lockmore as well on that one. Sunday and Toomer against Clonoulty Rossmore. Now, we didn't see a jersey change for either Nenagh or Thurles on Saturday. It wasn't too bad, really, but we'll definitely have to have a jersey change here, Shane.
Yeah, there should be. I think Toom have a yellow and green, I think, change strip, and I think is Clonoulty only go from Kerry to Mayo, I think, unless they've got a new change strip, but I haven't seen. But yeah, this is the one quarter final. I'm flip flopping over who's going to win. Like, I think this is the hardest one to call of the four, because like you have Toom have been building nicely through the group stage, wins over Mike Harkey, Killer One, and Roscrea, but I think this is the toughest team this is the best team they've played since they played Nenagh in the North quarter final. So I think this is the real acid test of how far the Toomey Vara have come this year. And like Clonoulty, bit of confidence from last week. Okay, they have an extra game in their legs now, but they have a bit of momentum. They look to have everybody back, all their key players starting. I thought it was interesting. It looked like they went with their strongest 15. Stephen Fern come back and attack. Danny Slattery back in the backs. Jesus, yeah. I think I wouldn't be surprised if extra time is needed this one. I've just gone for Clonoulty, maybe on experience and maybe a small bit more know-how at this stage. The Toom, I think Toom have probably more potential going into the future. Like I went to Darren McCarthy. Jesus, what did he score? 16 points in the county under-19 semi-final last weekend. He's just on fire at the moment. He's just lighting it up, and looking forward to seeing how he goes in Semple Stadium. Like, you see, will he have sort of a coming of age game? Like, I don't know what you think. This is toss of a coin stuff for me between these two. I could say I can give claims for both sides to win this game.
Yeah, and Shane, seeing as you mentioned Toomey Vara underage, are you going to give any hop for Bursley beating Killer One in the North Minor A?
Oh, sure, they're flying it, and there's no doubt about it. Like Tom, great to see Tom Delaney running the show there. I know he was a brilliant player at under 12, and I think they're in a county quarter final on Sunday against Urlas Oak. So look, it's good times for Bursley coming, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So this weekend, then again, back to Tuam and Clonoulty, Paul. Like Jack Ryan, I'm looking forward to seeing what he's like in the stadium now. I know he had some injury issues earlier in the year, but like this should be the stage for him.
Yeah, and he only scored a point of influential. He won a few big puck outs towards the end, and yeah, he's an exciting prospect just in terms of he has all the kind of physical gifts. He's very tall, he's quick, and he's strong under the high ball. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see him. But I'd be similar to Shane. This is proper 50-50. I'd love to be able to say, oh, this is why this team will definitely win, but you just can't. Like Ross Gray coming in off one all their 3 group games, so and going well underage. Like I'm sure there's great momentum and great atmosphere around the club. And Clonoulty had the kind of opposite in the group stage. They drew their first game against Bursley in a poor performance, and then lost to Thurles and lost to Killadangan. But you kind of always felt, oh, once it gets to knockout, Clonoulty will be different, and we kind of saw that there last weekend. Beating Mullinahone. They looked a completely different team. Now they still kind of made hard work of it for a finish, but yeah, this is proper 50-50. Really looking forward to it. So much good kind of matchups around. Like if it's Robert Doyle on Andrew Ryan, like that's a great matchup inside, and Darren McCarthy, like who's going to pick him up, and Enda Heffernan back there as well. Jack Delaney having another fine year. So really looking forward to this one. And yeah, like there's just so many good matchups across even the Tuam half back line. Let's say like who's going to be picking up Conor Hammersley and Cathal Burke. Cathal Burke was brilliant against Mullinahone again. So yeah, I can't wait for this one. It's going to be a great double header down in Samba Stadium on Sunday, and yeah, I can't wait for this one to get on.
Like if you're looking for Tipperary pointers, you see if maybe Enda Heffernan goes on Jack Delaney, it's a test for Jack. How Josh McCarthy probably have a different test if it's Conor Hammersley at centre forward, because Conor tends to drift left and right into pockets of space. So yeah, like there's so many areas where both teams can think, oh, that we can get a bit of joy. Like so
even midfield, like you have Robbie Quirk and there with like Ronan Heffernan or Michael Ryan, like so there's just brilliant matchups, 50-50 matchups everywhere. So that's why it's kind of a 50-50 game.
Yeah, and even beyond that, like to confuse matters even further is like you'd say that Clonoulty Rossmore came through the toughest group, and obviously they needed a preliminary quarterfinal, so they didn't get top 2 in that with Bursley, Thurles and Killadangan. Whereas because of how Killarwan were this year and missing players and so on and so forth, Killarwan, Moycarkey Burris and Ross Gray, even though they're all good teams, it wasn't the same level of group, Shane, either. So that makes it even more difficult to judge the form lines.
That's it. That's particularly from the Tuam point of view. Yeah, the group wasn't. I suppose you had Killarwan, a seasoned team, but not at their best, and probably Ross Gray and Mike Carkey, probably not as seasoned, maybe senior teams, but because that they're only up from Premier Intermediate a couple of years, and they're not as experienced yet. So like, there's no doubt about it. I think Ken Dunn and their backroom team will know that this is their stiffest test since the North quarter final and the Narrow lost to Nenagh. So yeah, that's why it makes it so utterly fascinating. You have a Tuam team on the rise and a Clonoulty team that they had a difficult group, but they're still standing. I suppose that strange thing of can they extricate themselves from relegation? They're still in relegation. Like it's mad bar to go on and win the county. Like so, I'm sure Killarwan, Brackens, and Upper Church will be hoping for Tumivara win just to try and give themselves a fixture to come in the next few weeks.
Yeah,
both teams as well on Sunday. Tuam and Clonoulty have both changed their goalkeepers throughout the year. Like Conor Gray started in goals for Tuam, Rory Brislan came back in and has been unreal. But Jason O'Dwyer, the Tip under 20 goalie from this year, started for Clonoulty at the weekend. So bit of chopping and changing it was kind of strange that Martin Sadlier, I don't know, did he do anything wrong or anything? He was tugged out there at the weekend, but he must have lost his place some way to Jason O'Dwyer. So that's another kind of interesting kind of, I suppose, a bit of information about the two teams heading into this weekend.
Yeah, Bree Delaney says, Honda McCarthy, definitely a future Tip senior player. Quirky 1980s in again. Jack Ryan has come on leaps in a year. He's a rare target man at club level. Then the other quarterfinal of the weekend, the last one, and I'd say the tastiest one for a lot of the neutrals, Drummond Inch versus Thurles Sars, who's 345. Shane, I'd say there'd be very little coffee shared between Paddy Maher and Seamus Callan in the Heyday Coffee Shop this week.
And just lovely coffee. I got one down there last week when I was in there. Yeah,
You
yeah.
a flat white man, or are you a cappuccino man?
I think I had a cappuccino. It was a warm day, so I had it outside, so it sort of felt like I was in somewhere in Italy having a lovely cappuccino outside.
Oh, sure, Turles would be the same, sure. Turles would be the same.
Oh, like, sure, it's like Pisa in the summertime when the sun is out. Like, that new. No, but yeah. On paper it probably looks the tide around, but like I do think Drom and Inch have an awful lot to do. Like they're flatter to deceive in big knockout games the last few years. I think there's a real put it up to. I think the management have really got to put it up to the players now, because I don't know. Like they have so many players that have worn a Tip jersey. Maybe the likes of Johnny Ryan and David Collins and Seamus Callan, like they've been great servants, but some of the younger lads have really got to step up now. And like Tommy Nolan has had a great last 2 championships now, but there's more. Like there's some the Pádraig Campion's had a quiet campaign. Johnny Campion really hasn't taken the game championship by storm yet. So like Drum need to bring something big, and like you like for their point of view, and I hope for the nature of the game that the sight of that sky blue jersey from the boys in the road now might rise a big performance out of them. But I think Turles are coming into a right good bit of form, strong panel. Like if you can beat Nenagh without even getting Paddy Creedon, I suppose have him featuring, and like if that disciplinary issue works in the right way, and maybe Paddy, I presume he won't start this weekend. If he comes on, he'll be looking to prove a point. So I would make Drum in strong favourites, but like my worry with Drum, and I know it was a dead rubber the last hurling match, but like that was like to be beaten that badly by Brackens. Like they still put out their full team, like, because it just showed me maybe why would you switch off like that in a game that doesn't matter? Like you should go out and try and make the best of it as you can. Like, I don't know, but like you still lost by 11 points, or was it 14? Like, and only got 2 late goals. Like there was look. I could be proved wrong, but I didn't think it was a good look.
Yeah, no, it's not. But like at least it's a stick for management to beat them coming into this. And the flip side then again for Paddy Maher. Like he throws in Shawnee Butler the last day and he scores 4 points. He was very good. Billy McCarthy hit 1-2, Paul. He was very, very good. I'm sure everyone's delighted to see him going well after the injury nightmares he's had. Connor Stapleton, I thought, was relatively quiet. There's more to come from him. And there's probably more to come from Stephen Cahill as well. Like so James Armstrong, I think, is growing all the time as well. Like Dara Stapleton then been very good form. Like there's a lot of reasons to think that Turles will really step up this weekend.
Yeah, they've huge strength and depth, and everyone on the field for them can score. And even against Nenagh, I think, Shane, did you mention it earlier, they had 12 different scores. And with the likes of Sean Butler starting, scoring 4 points, then he was replaced by Owen Purcell, who came on and scored 3 points. So they're not short of anything. And yeah, Connor Stapleton was quiet against Nenagh, but he's still so like combative in around the middle of the field. He's there at every ruck and hassling and harrying the whole time. But for this game, like Turles are going to be the favourites, and you can see why. But again, I mentioned it already. I'm interested to see what Drum are going to do with Ronan Maher, because something needs to be done if you're going to beat Turles, because you can't just leave him free. But then if you do push a lad up on him, it does leave a lot of space, and you're going to have to really trust your backmen. So that's going to be the key to this game. If it's a kind of game where there's long ball going down towards Seamus Callan or whoever, and it's breaking off him and in behind Ronan Maher, it's going to be over quickly. So looking forward to it. I would have Turles as favourites, but the fact that it's a rivalry, you'd hope that Drum really brings something here and make a really good game of it, because they do have, like, Drum last year could have beaten Kildangan in that semi-final, so they'll be feeling like they might have even left a county title behind them last year. So they really need to show something. But that Bracken's performance is a worry for them. I know it was a dead rubber for both teams, but as Shane said, still losing by 11 points. It's just a kind of a momentum killer. So hopefully for them, they've been able to get something going over the last few weeks.
So Shane, I think it's a good opportunity to bring up your latest power rankings. From 10 to is that this week's one? No, sorry. You just give me more thoughts on that game this weekend, and I'll try and get the latest power rankings.
The fascinating. I suppose the fact that Drum and Inch are so familiar with Sars, they probably have a feel for what to do with Ronan Maher. You think you've got to at least keep him occupied. Maybe you probably have to go man for man. You can't. I think you you probably have to trust yourself on that, but you can't give him free possession like and play 7 backs, because he'll pick apart a free man. So like I think whether it's who could you put on him now, I suppose it's hard to see. Maybe Callan probably wouldn't be the right man. It'd be interesting to see what they decide to do. But I do think that they nearly have to go man for man, but you just can't let Ronan Maher with free ball no matter how well coached you're going to try and keep the ball away from him. Ronan is just so good at reading it and drifting into pockets of space where he thinks the ball is going to be delivered into.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to have the power rankings up just in a second now. So, like, is there enough scoring threat in that Drum team? And Paul, even like the fact that they seem like they're being talked down their chance to win this game, like, is there going to be a bit of fire in the bellies?
You think so? And maybe that could they could look back and say, like, I'm sure it's hard for players to get motivated for a game that doesn't matter at all. And you often see it with challenge matches and things like that, that lads aren't going 100%. And maybe if Drum aren't going 100%, there's that big drop off. And that's what we saw against JK Bracken. So they do have a lot of firepower. Like, Tommy Nolan, again, playing very well. And Seamus Callanan, although he's not, the Seamus Callanan of 10 years ago, he's still incredibly efficient when he gets the ball. And in Drum, they have really good goalkeeper, Owen Collins, brilliant ball striker, and the wide open spaces in Semple Stadium, he'll be able to find puck out. So they will get plenty of joy in this game, but it's just a matter of can they kind of match up with Thurles and their scoring threat.
Yeah, so Quirky 1980 says Drum are defensively poor in the air, which would catch up with them, especially against the likes of Billy McCarthy and Sars' direct play. Now I have it up here, Shane. So from 10 to 16, there's no change at all, but plenty of movement in the first 9 places.
Yeah, I suppose there was only 2 games, but I suppose the big movers, Clonoulty with their win, move up from 9 to 6, just I suppose ahead of Mullinahone, who they beat. Like I know, I sort of reassessed things with Toomey Vara. Like I think I might drop them 2 spots, even though they didn't play. But I was reassessing things after the last round. I was like, maybe like who would if Killadangan and Sars were playing Toom in the morning, I would think Killadangan and Sars would probably beat them. So that's why it was just it's not demoting Toom as such for anything they've done wrong. It's just a reassessment, and I think that way Killadangan probably Sarsfields would be ahead of them, and just in terms of I suppose if they were playing them in the morning, who would you fancy? And probably Killadangan and Sars will be those teams.
Yeah, Paul, anything from that now? Any of those changes in the first 9 that you'd disagree with?
Nothing really. When you brought it up, my eyes were instantly brought towards the bottom 4 teams, and just like how unpredictable that relegation playoff is going to be. But in terms of the top 9, yeah, it seems pretty okay. I'm sure Roscrea and Holy Cross won't be happy with where they are, given that they're in the quarterfinals. But yeah, you can see why Clonoulty have pushed up. They looked much better over the weekend. But yeah, sure, like that's kind of it. The Lockmore, Killadangan, and Thurles are definitely the 3 favourites. So I'd agree with most of it. All right.
Now, I suppose if I was ranking my top 8, you take Mullinahone and Nenagh out and put Roscrea and Holy Cross in, but they'd still be in the bottom 2 of the 8 if you were going ranking that's of the 8 teams that are left standing.
Yeah. So some of the other fixtures that happened during last week, Shane, that we didn't get around to or we haven't spoken in the meantime, in the preliminary intermediate hurling championship, it was a delayed fixture between St. Mary's and Mine Temple 2. St. Mary's won that comprehensively, 125 to 16 points. Preliminary quarterfinal then, Gortnahoe, Glengoule 120, St. Mary's 115. In the intermediate championship, Moneygall had a great win over Kilsheal and Kilcash, and preliminary quarterfinal then Kilsheal and Kilcash 315, Skeena Rinky 117 there. So just give us your thoughts broadly on that stuff.
Yeah, sure. In the Premier Intermediate, I suppose it was a disappointing mixed week for St. Mary's. I thought they were very impressive against Mine on the Wednesday, but Mine were very, very poor. Like I worry for Mine maybe in terms of relegation. It was just like you think St. Mary's had a player sent off after 5 minutes, and they won pulling up it looked as if Mine Temple 2, he were the team that were playing with had a man sent off. Like they just weren't able. Like you think they weren't able to beat Cashel with 12 men. There's just something not gelling in Mine. So like they're playing Newport in the relegation semi-final next Sunday. Like they're 2 clubs that would hate to say that they wouldn't want to go back down, but like they're both struggling for form. And you have Sean Tracy's against Portrue in the other relegation semi next weekend. So like there are two massive games. Moving on to Sunday, St. Mary's. I thought maybe a bit of momentum after that win and they took it into the Gortnahoe game and they flew out of the traps. They were really, really good early on, full value for their half-time lead, but Gortnahoe just really got in their faces in the second half, just wore them down really. Like they didn't do anything spectacular. They just upped their work rate. They hooked, they bucked, they harried, they hassled. And look, when with Cian Hayes in the form he's in, like they were able to keep the scoreboard ticking over at their forward end. And this was last year's finalists are into the quarterfinals now, and we have four tasty ones this weekend.
Yeah, so we'll start off with Burgess against Thurles Sarsfields. That's in Burrislee on Saturday, 3:00. Paul, you probably don't want to say too much about it, but probably
I'll comment on this one if he comments on Laura and Clonakilty. So
yeah, okay, we'll agree to that. So
yeah. Okay, Shane. Well, look, I'll try and get something out of you, Shane, on saying about Laura, but go ahead there on Burgess.
It's a sticky one. I always feel when you're playing a club second team, psychologically it's a difficult one because you probably should be winning, but like Thurles have ridiculous talent. Like, and they're such a slick ball playing team, even at Premier Intermediate level. Like they've guys that would be playing senior on most other teams. Like so, and you have Michael Cahill at centre back orchestrating the show. So you think Burgess are playing too well maybe over the last 2 years that you're probably their bit of physicality, their bit of know-how would probably be enough to get past Sarsfields.
Is there going to be a big row between the two of you if you end up against each other in the intermediate or in Premier Intermediate Championship?
No, should we go on the finest at the North Finals? So
yeah, but like if there's promotion up to the senior level at stake, could all kick off. Laura against
bridge if we come to it.
Laura against Clonakilty then 3:00 on Saturday in Nenagh. How would you see that going, Paul?
One way, Laura win. I to be honest, I'd say Clonakilty. When we played them, they weren't at their best at all. It was a real dirty day inside Nenagh, and they just didn't kind of get much going at all that day. But they're a kind of big physical team. Like they've some massive lads all around the field who can hurl, and I'm sure Cian O'Dwyer is probably further along his recovery in the past couple of weeks because he's been playing all the games, but he hasn't been. I think he had a dislocated ankle in the mid-final. So he's kind of surely a bit more further along the line. So that's a boost for Clonakilty. But Laura have just been so good this year and won all their games. Have much more kind of firepower. You'd have to think so. I'd only see Laura winning. I'd be very surprised if Clonakilty were to come out with this with a win. But it's a Saturday. It's a really good double header actually in Nenagh with Bursakane and Moneygall on before it. So it'd be good entertainment nonetheless. But you'd have to fancy Laura for this one.
Yeah,
those comments are going to be attributed to me now. That only one way Clonakilty. They'll end up pinning it on me now to get them motivated. Like so.
Well, we heard
I tell you, Clonakilty are seasoned at this level. We're not expecting anything other than a really, really tough encounter. Like they're up at Premier Intermediate longer than we are, so like that bit of experience counts for a lot.
Yeah. So then on Sunday in Clonmel, Carrick-Swanner against Killinall, and in Holy Cross, Cashel Kincormac will meet Gortnahoe Glengool. Shane, how will they go?
Oh, I tell you, if I was able to get to Clonmel on Sunday, this is teak tough divisional stuff between the Swan and Killinall. Like on the face of it, you say Killinall are favourites. They should have Dean O'Connor back. I don't know, John O'Dwyer. Like we haven't seen him yet, really. Like so, and like we I suppose it's getting close to the end now. Like we're the target in the knockout stage for him to come back. If he's back, I'd fancy them. But like I tell you, the Swan against any other South team, don't see themselves inferior to anybody in the South. Like, and I think if there was one fixture maybe the Swan would have wanted, this was it, because I know it'll get the juices flowing. So, oh God, Killinall you'd think on paper, but would I be surprised the Swan won? Absolutely not.
Okay, and then the relegation semi-final.
Just like Cashel and Gortnahoe.
Oh, sorry.
Another toss of a kind game here. Like this is a game between two teams who could realistically, I think, say they could win the whole thing out, and one of them will be gone on Saturday afternoon. So, like both teams massive potential on both sides. I don't know what Paul thinks. I think this is maybe Cashel or slight favourites, but we saw with Gorton Who last week. They're hard beaten.
And Keane Hayes stopping him as well.
Yeah.
Paul. Yeah, he's been, his free taking is something else. Like the frees he was getting the other day. I suppose the mistake St. Mary's made was giving Gorton Who any bit of a chance, because St. Mary's should have had 2 more goals in that first half. Gorton Who goalie Timmy Dunn made a brilliant double save, and then Ross Peters had a chance for a goal and just put it over the bar. So, like, on another day, Gorton Who were well out of it at half time, and St. Mary's probably going to win it, but Gorton Who came out with the blocks unbelievable in the second half. And they'll have huge momentum going into this game now against Cashel. But yeah, it's 2 of the top teams in the division. So really looking forward to see how that one plays out. And the other one then is a repeat of the South final. I'm sure both Killenaule and Carrick Swan were probably got a bit of fire in their belly when they saw the draw and saw that they're going to be playing their South rivals. So that's going to be a really fiery affair, as Shane said. So some really good ties throughout the weekend in all 4 of those Premier Intermediate quarterfinals.
Yeah, like the four games, you could see each. You could see 8 different winners. Like this is, and maybe unlike the senior, where there's maybe I think 2 or maybe 3 clear-cut favourites. I don't think any that there's any. Well, you might call a favourite in a Premier Intermediate match. None of the 4 matches are clear-cut as far as I'm concerned.
That's just kind of what the division is as well. Like when any of the relegation teams that are in there now, if they were playing a quarterfinal, they'd have a reasonable chance to win any of them. That's just how the division is. And even on Connakenny, like all the Ryans, Willie Ryan and Nicky Ryan are brilliant physical players. The real physical team, as I mentioned. So like Laura won't have it easy by any means, but I still fancy Laura to win that game. But as I said, wouldn't be surprised if any of the 8 teams are into the semi-finals in 2 weeks' time.
And as you mentioned, the relegation clashes, Sean Tracy's will meet Portrush and Nenagh 5 o'clock on Saturday.
Newport.
In Newport, apologies. On Sunday then in Holy Cross, Newport will meet Moyne Templetoe. I'm very surprised, Shane, to see Moyne Templetoe with some of the talent they have in a relegation clash, but I suppose that's just how the season's panned out, with maybe injuries at different times and stuff.
It is, and I just think the makeup of their team is all wrong. Conor Bowe at centre back. I just think they're probably I just thought it was too easy from St. Mary's to pick them apart last weekend, even like with 14 men. I just wonder at this stage, would it be better off just go back to basics, put Bowe and O'Connor in the forwards, and just give yourselves maybe a bit. Like it's all about winning from here. Like I do sometimes. I think some of the relegation matches are really better than the quarterfinals, but it's got the fear of relegation just draws the rawness out here. Like some of these relegation matches over the weekend, I think they'll probably be as entertaining, if not more, than the knockout quarterfinals.
Yeah, so the intermediate then, the first fixture that we're going to see this weekend in the quarterfinals, Borrisokane against Moneygall, and they met already in the North final, Paul. And it was an impressive win for Moneygall that day. Even watching them last week against Kilsheelan and Kilcash, I thought they were very impressive as well at times, because they had the game in hand, then they fell behind and they came back and won it late on. But Borrisokane, apart from that North final, they've been quite good this year. So, I'd imagine they'll have learned from that North final. It shouldn't be too much between the 2 teams.
Yeah, like that North final, like there was just such a strange start to that game with Borrisokane. They didn't score at all for the first 15 odd minutes, I think, and Moneygall kind of had the game sewn up at that stage, so it was never really a true game. But I think this is it's a dangerous position for Moneygall, because everyone looking in will just see, oh sure, Moneygall bet them well in the North final, that's probably going to how it's going to go again. But I think Borrisokane will be really kind of reveling in the chance at a bit of redemption now, because like anytime you get a chance to right a wrong, especially in the same season, for a team is huge. So I'm sure they would have been hurting after that North final. They didn't show up at all. So now they're going to be thinking, right, we have the chance to turn over Moneygall. So it's going to be a dangerous one for Moneygall, but they've come through a lot of tough games throughout the year. I was at their game against Boherlahan in the group stage, and a late goal. They got the late goal, was it against Boherlahan that day? But that was a really close game, and the same with Kilsheelan. So they're definitely battle tested, our Moneygall. So really interesting to see this one. Sean Keneally and Joe Fogarty. Joe Fogarty's been really, really good for them, and they've plenty of performers all around the field have Moneygall. So looking forward to that one. That's probably one of the ties of the weekend in the intermediate grade.
Yeah, I just on that one, like it for Borrisokane, particularly, it's nearly an absolute repeat of this time last year where they played Laura in a quarter final in Nenagh, raging underdogs, and like they came within minutes of knocking us out. Like they were very, very good that day. And I just sometimes trying to beat the same team twice is very difficult. And like in some ways that North final was a bit of a freak. Like Brophy have nearly wiped the floor with every other game this year, and they've had strong first halves in all the other games except that one against Moneygall. So look, if they're in this game at half time, I think they'll have every chance of winning. Like at Moneygall, I'd still fancy Moneygall to get through. I thought just the way they dug out that win against Kilsheelan last weekend, missing a few players, probably under the cosh a bit. Like it says a lot about their quality. Like they've loads. Maybe like the fact that maybe the Joe Fogarty, Sean Kennelly, Paddy Fogarty, Sean, I think they probably have a more greater spread of scores when push comes to shove, maybe to get over the line. But very, very dangerous game for them. I agree with Paul. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Moneygall or Brophy maybe overturned the result, but I think Moneygall probably definitely favourites for coming in. But Brophy are a dangerous animal like this weekend.
Yeah, have Moneygall evolved much from the team that your Laura beat last year in the intermediate final?
Not quite. I think they're generally playing a lot the same. I think is it Paddy or Sean Fogarty was missing last year. He's definitely an addition to that team this year. There's no doubt about it. So
probably a younger team now. Like there's probably
slightly younger. Yeah. They got a couple. They got one lad off their minor team last year. I think is it young Hoolan in defence. He was very good, and like they brought in a couple of their junior Bs like last week to make it to, I suppose, the few lads that were missing. So now they have a bit of a deep panel now. They've blooded a couple of guys they'll be able to bring off the bench. Like I'm getting the better of a very, very good Kilsheelan team. So now they have subs to bring on. So look, I suppose it's like that when you're touted at the start of the year, there's a target on your back, and I suppose they have a double target considering they've played a team they've beaten already. And I suppose maybe psychologically from Moneygall, they wouldn't want to be thinking that we've beaten Bursley and Handley already. We probably should do it again, but that doesn't work out like that.
Yeah, so Cappawhite have won all their games so far this year. I think 5 wins. They've been they've been sitting waiting for 3 weeks, whereas Kilsheelan and Kilcash, Paul, will be facing their 4th game in 14 days. Still no, it's hard to look at the quality in Kilsheelan and think they'll be beaten in this game.
Yeah, but that's a good point. 4 games in 14 days is mad enough. Like, but I suppose with the tragic circumstances, that's just how it had to play out. But yeah, like I haven't seen Cappawhite this year, but Kilsheelan, we all know that the talent they've had, and they came through that group with Moneygall, albeit through the preliminary quarterfinals. But they finished strongly against Skaheen at the weekend. They're under a lot of pressure. They're well up in the game a number of times, and Skaheen came back into it and got the goal with 10 minutes to go, but then Skaheen didn't score for the last 10 minutes, and Kilsheelan saw it out for a finish. But yeah, like it's Mark Keogh, again, he scored 2 goals at the weekend. It's just if he gets any sniff of a chance in around the goals at all, it's into the back of the net. So that's a huge asset to have, especially in knockout hurling. So interesting to see how it goes. Cappawhite, I think, if they won all their games coming into this, so they'll have built up a big head of steam coming into this, and will have plenty of momentum as well. And you could easily foresee a situation where Kilsheelan might run out of juice in the legs, and Cappawhite with a bit of momentum. So yeah, anything can happen in that game. But just off the base with the talent we all know on that Kilsheelan team, you'd have to fancy them.
Yeah, Shane.
Yeah, no, I would fancy Kilsheelan to get through. And I suppose there was always I thought they were very impressive against Moneygall off 2 days rest, and there was always a chance maybe there would be maybe they would be a little sluggish against Skaheen, and they weren't. Like they got out of the traps really well. 3 goals in the first 20 minutes, and look, they needed them. Skaheen were right with them, and then that was a South game. Like you always knew that Skaheen would keep it close, but I do think maybe Kilsheelan's ability to get goals might, and I suppose their greater maybe pedigree in the latter stages of this championship in the last few years. I fancy them to get through. And however, I suppose we're talking to Cappawhite, just sympathies to Cappawhite and the Kelly family, and the death of John Kelly, our Tips full back in the 1971 All-Ireland winning team. He died last week. So played a bit with Killer won a Cork championship with UCC. So I didn't know much about him, but reading up about him over the last week, great hurling man, great Cappawhite man. So deep sympathies to Cappawhite and to Tip GAA.
And in Drum and Inch will meet, second team will meet Golden Kilfeacle, and Drum have been impressive so far, but Golden Kilfeacle, I think they have one win, Shane, and they scraped through on the score difference rule, which has been updated this year. So you couldn't exactly say they've been flying.
No, I think it's mad to think between division and county, they've only won one match and they're still in the county quarter final. So yeah, it looks like they haven't been hurling well this year, even though I think they're better players than what we're showing. Like Drum are unbeaten. They're training with their senior team. I was just going through some of the players on the Drum panel. Like, I think they play senior in a lot of other clubs. Like, so I on form, I fancy Drum to get through to another semi-final. They got to a semi-final last year, so like they're playing consistently at this level.
And Paul, that game maybe, and then also Borlath and Douala against Knockavilla, Donaskey, Kickham's and Cashel.
Yeah, the only thing about Golden, I suppose, is like they only won one game, but it was the last game where they needed to win by 3 points, and there was a draw game in injury time, and they scored a goal to win by 3 points and go through. So I'm sure like they'll get some boost from that heading into the last game. And the final game is Borlahan and against who did you say? Knockavilla, yeah. So Borlahan have been very impressive. They're really, really quick team. They've plenty of pace all over the field, and lads well able to take scores. And they also have the two O'Dwyer lads now in this year, and they're young, but Ger O'Dwyer, if you didn't know, he was centre back on the Cashel Community School Harty Cup team. So that was earlier in the year, so he must only be 18, 19, but like if you just look at him talked out in the field, you think this lad he's well into his mid-20s. Like, he's a colossus of a lad for his age. Like, so and Brian Ogue, then his brother up the other end of the field, is well able to take score as well. So Borlahan have a really good team. You'd fancy them for this game. I would anyway. I'd fancy them for this game because I've seen them up close a number of times, and they're an impressive outfit.
I fancy Borlahan, but like I wouldn't be familiar with this area of Tip, but by all accounts there's a serious rivalry between these two, even though they're mid against west, but they're border each other. So maybe the fact that they don't play each other that often, it might generate a bit of a by just reading a few things online, there's a bit of crack already down there over this. So you think Borlahan's favourites, but if that derby element comes into it and Kickham's rise to the occasion, you wouldn't be surprised if Kickham's turned over.
Yeah, the two relegation semi-finals then, Arravale Rovers against Upper Church Strumban and Killadangan against Shannon Rovers, two teams that'll be a fair bit of familiarity there, Shane.
I fancy Arravale to get through their semi-final, all right. Shannon Rovers and Killadangan, you think George Hannigan, Shannon Rovers playing against a lot of the players he trains with Killadangan, and then you have, there's so many of the Killadangan senior team have fathers that are from Shannon Rovers, like Liam Hogan, Sean O'Mara, the Malachneys, so they have all Shannon Rovers heritage through their fathers, so the real crossover this one. Like Shannon Rovers have heard pretty well, but they've got no reward for it. They're in a rotten group, and Killadangan, I suppose after being relegated from Premier Intermediate last year, you would have thought maybe that they'd be a good solid intermediate team and wouldn't get dragged into relegation, but you probably think maybe fancy Killadangan, but like if Shannon Rovers bring if they bring their form from, if the quality they're playing the other three matches, maybe they think that they're finally due a win.
And the fixtures for the Junior A then as well. So it's Ballynahinch against Latin Cullen, JK Brackens meet Moyle Rovers, Clonmel Ogue against Holy Cross Ballycal, and then on the 23rd, Clonoulty Rossmore will meet Rossgrey. Shane, is there anything you want to mention on any of that?
I suppose when you're looking at Junior A, I suppose you're looking at the pure junior clubs like to Ballynahinch and Latin Cullen, and I suppose shout out to Clonmel Ogue, won their first ever South Junior A championship last weekend, beating Moyle Rovers. Like, that was a fair result in itself. So but that makes Clonmel Ogue very vulnerable against who are they playing? Holy Cross this weekend. Like, after the high last weekend, will you be able to refocus straight away? And we always know that the second teams of the mid clubs, the Brackens and Holy Cross, are very, very strong. So and of course the pure junior clubs are going through to the Munster Club Championship. You probably think the winner of Latin Cullen and Ballynahinch would be in the box seat, maybe to do a representative there. So I always think if you get to this when the divisions finish and you get to the county quarterfinals, you can really see maybe what division has been stronger than the other, maybe.
Yeah, and then I suppose one of the last things we'll come to is the camogie. So over the weekend, I was in Borrisley to see a very comprehensive win for Clonoulty Rossmore. That was 4-13 to 9 points. In the other group, Thurles, they were 5-13. Burgess Duhara 2-17. Karen Kendi very good there. Also in that group, Nenagh Oak 3-8, Drom and Inch 6-23. So comprehensive win for Drom there. Also in group 2, Knockavilla Kickham's 110, Aero Gannacarty 11 points, and Cashel King Cormac's 112, Knockavilla Kickham's 15. So that was a draw. But I might just start off with the Clonoulty victory over Borrisley. It was those 3 goals without reply towards the latter end of the first half. Like, Borrisley had competed very, very well, but it was just the cuteness of the forwards that Clonoulty have. And there was no Caught Devan there. Now, Borrisley didn't have Katie Fitzgerald or Nicole Walsh, and that's 2 big losses there. But like, throughout the game, Shane, just the interplay from the forwards for Clonoulty, I just thought their use of the ball, even when they brought in the subs, they were very impressive as well. Their use of the ball, they just kind of picked Borrisley apart. Like, I don't think Borris are as far away as the scoreline suggests, but just when Clonoulty get in, they just punish you.
Yeah, I know. Borris got narrow wins over Kickham's and Cashel, but like, they were coming up against a really seasoned team now last weekend for the first time, and I suppose they got a taste of maybe the level they have to get up to now to be competing maybe for senior championships going forward. And yeah, like, without Caught Devan, like, that was a comprehensive win for Clonoulty, and like, seeing Emer Burke stepping in and getting 3-3, like, maybe it shows that Clonoulty are coming to the boil there at the moment. I just think the fascinating thing about that group is, like, you're going to have one really good team not making the quarterfinals. But you look at the bottom, Cashel are currently bottom, like, and they were semi-finalists last year, and like, if they have to beat Clonoulty next weekend, or else they're going to miss out and they're going to end up in a relegation playoff against Nenagh. Like, okay, they probably would be fancy to beat Nenagh, but that would be a big setback for Cashel if they didn't make a semi-final. So it just shows you that the club championship in Tip has really, I think, for a few years there, it was Drom and it was Burgess O'Hara, and there was a big gap to everyone else. Like, it's really concertinaed up really tight. And now, while Drom are still favourites, you look at the other group, big win for Sarsfield's away to O'Hara last weekend. It just shows you Sarsfield's development is coming on a pace. So, like, I think when we get down to the quarterfinals, we're going to have 4 really good games. And like, while Drom are still favourites, I do think it's not going to be. I think we're going to get some really good competitive knockout games in this championship.
Yeah, I'll just read out the tables then, and Paul, throw it to you if you want to make any comment on either. So Group 1, Drom and Inch are top with 3 wins from 3. Burgess Duhara have played 4 and they've won 2 games. Thurles Sarsfields have 2 wins from their 3. Silvermines have 1 win from 3, and Nenagh have lost all 3 of their games. And in the second group, Clonoulty, they're top with 2 wins and a draw. Borrisley are next with 2 wins and a loss. Aero and Knockavilla Kickham's, they're on 3 points each with a win, draw and loss. And then Cashel King Cormac's prop up the rest. Actually, Knockavilla Kickham's have 2 losses there. They've played 4 games. But Paul, any thoughts on either group?
Yeah, I suppose Group 1 is more straightforward in terms of who's going to go through. 4 of the 5 teams in both groups go through, so a little bit more straightforward, I would say, going into the final round of games compared to what Cashel need to do in the second group. But yeah, I suppose it really kind of lights up when it gets to the quarterfinal stages, when it's knockout. There's a little bit of shadow boxing at times in the group stages if teams know they're already through, and it's, there's not too much of a difference between finishing 3rd and 4th or 2nd and 3rd, so they might rest a few players. But yeah, Thurles, I didn't see the game against Burgess now, but by all accounts I heard that Karen Kendi was very good, which obviously doesn't surprise me at all. But she kind of plays more up the field a bit more for Thurles than she was with Tipperary. But we saw, so we saw when she was up the field for Tip how much damage she done. So you can imagine at club level there for Drom and Inch. They've won. They're going for 5 in a row, but they're without Caoimhe Burke, the Tip goalkeeper, and a lot of times in the final, like, she saved a penalty in the final last year, made a few key saves, and that's a little bit of a fear going down the stretch without your number 1 goalkeeper, because they've won 4 in a row county titles, but like Clonoulty have been within a puck of the ball of them for the last 2. So Clonoulty, as you said, had that good win over Borrisley, and they'll feel like there's a county final in them. Like they've had plenty of heartbreak the last few years. So I'd be interested to see can they get over the line this year. But to have such a comprehensive win without Caughtavan is a good sign for them, because it's not a bad Bursley team, despite missing those two key players that you mentioned.
Yeah, and like, to be honest, goalkeeping across the board in camogie generally often decides so many games, because we see an awful lot of spills and handy goals, and like it's crucial. Shane, anything else you want to touch on before we finish up?
Yeah, I suppose we just said another maybe bit on Seamus Callan. I suppose we were caught a little on the hop last week with his retirement, and I suppose we've been able to maybe sit down and reflect on it. And like I just went in the Guardian this week. I did a piece with Eamon O'Shea and Brendan Maher on their reflections of Seamus' career, and I suppose the fact that from a personal point of view, like I more or less my first year in media was 2006, and that's when I suppose Seamus first came to prominence on that minor team, and he scored that. I remember going back to a match. I was like, yeah, I remember. Yeah, he scored a winning point in the All Ireland semi-final against Kilkenny. And I think maybe that back-to-back minors wouldn't have happened without that score, and like how he just that career from there through Liam Sheedy bringing him on and having that great first year, and then that 2014 league campaign where he really came to the fore, and just sitting chatting with particularly Eamon, like, and I suppose who he name checked in his statement, and reflecting on Seamus the man and Seamus the player, and like how Eamon saw him for the first time, and that he found his striking style very rangy, and how his shooting approach changed over the years. His striking style became tidier over the years, and even his finishing, like you think about the boys, that Seamus could score a range of goals. Like he could, the brilliant finishes against Cork in the All-Ireland semi-final, and then I think was it the All-Ireland replay against, he was very good at the old scuffy finish thing, very good at if a goalie was at coming out, he'd scuff an old shot under his body. Like he was brilliant. He was like there was very, very few. I'm sure there were a lot of shots that maybe he would goalie saved from him, but there's very, very few high ones I can remember that a goalie actually saved the shot from Seamus Callan. He was just clinical in front of goals.
Paul?
Yeah, like composure is the word I always think of with Seamus Callan. Anytime he's in, even that game against Offaly this year, he broke onto that ball, and there could have been, it was just him and the goalkeeper on the field. No, he did have a lot of space for that goal in general, but like when he made his debut, what was it, 2008? Like I would have been just coming out of primary school pretty much at that age, or in sixth class. So my whole kind of teen years and youth was watching Seamus Callan just be unbelievable for Tipperary. So I think in the last week it's only kind of really coming to mind that, like, there's no replacement for Seamus Callan. You don't just produce those players all the time. Like, so he's going to be a huge loss. Like, to have someone just so clinical, able to score 40 goals in his championship career, like he's a huge loss. And I think, like, I probably didn't appreciate him enough in his prime. Like, I just thought, oh, this is just run the mill. It's Seamus Callan scoring 3-8 against Galway for 2 years in a row or whatever it was. This is just normal, like, when it's anything but, like. So unbelievable career. He's going to be a huge loss, and I'm looking forward to seeing him playing against Thurles, but it's a pity we won't get to see him play for Tip again. Isn't
it remarkable? I don't know, Shane, if you'd agree, for a guy who's done so much, he's still a little underestimated. And that's actually something Eamon O'Shea said to me in our chat, that, like, when you think of the great minor team, I don't know if Brendan, Noel and Pádraig always come to my mind straight away. I don't know what it is, but Seamus has done as much, if not more, than those guys. I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that I suppose we saw those three guys were naturally gifted, and Seamus sort of had to develop his game over the years, and he developed it to such a high level. And like I would have never had him down as captaincy material, even in the early part of his senior career, but he evolved into being an outstanding captain and leader of men. And I still remember that 2019 semi-final against Wexford when the comeback was on and Brendan Maher won a free, and there's a clip of him when Brendan got off the ground and Seamus said, keep it going. Like, he became so vocal and such a brilliant leader towards the latter half of his career.
Wasn't it because maybe the first 4 or 5 years other, like, people spent their time taking chops at him? Because the 2009 final, there was the goal chance that was saved by PJ Ryan, Jackie Tyrrell hitting him the shoulder into the chest. He still scored 3 points that day. He ended up getting dropped the next year. He ended up having the All-Ireland final in 2011, where he was taken off at half-time. 2012, there was reasons that he wasn't on the team. So I think people always doubted him from those first 4 or 5 years, even though we saw flashes of the brilliance that was to come down the line. And I don't think people ever accepted that he was fully like one of the best players we've seen in a generation, because there was always that little asterisk at the back of their mind. But like, the flip side is TJ Reid wasn't starting for Kilkenny for the first 4 years, maybe we'll say, in and out. Like his first couple of All-Irelands, he didn't start. So I just think people never fully give him the credit, because they always had in the back of their mind, that first few years he wasn't. Even 2013, he didn't start down in Nolan Park in Kilkenny as well. So, Paul, that'd be the reason that I'd say that people don't give him quite the level of standing that he deserves.
Yeah, definitely, probably with the way it all started. But going back to what Shane said about the different types of goals he got, like those kind of scuffed finishes, I put them down to just in the moment being able to just, okay, the goalie's rushing at me this way, but there's a little bit of space underneath him, just roll it under, pure composure. But as you mentioned, he could score all types of goals. Like the first championship one he got against Clare, broke onto a ball, edge of the 21 off his left, top corner. Then them goals against Galway, like Pádraig Mannion, high balls in, catching him out of the sky, shouldering off his man and just lettering him into the back of the net. Like, so he really had it all. I can't imagine marking him in those years, like 2014 through 2019. Just must have been a nightmare, like, because he was 6'3", 6'4", really quick, really strong, unbelievable striker of the ball, good heading him. So it was just unstoppable in his prime. But yeah, definitely underappreciated. And even myself, even just thinking back, like, he's going to be such a loss now.
Yeah, like it's just like, and he was, like, I would say before he came along, you had 3 great tip forwards. You had Jimmy Doyle, you had Nicky English, and Owen Kelly. Like, and I think Callan is up there now with them, because he was different to those other 3. Like, they were sticksmen par excellence. They were gifted. Like, where Callan really had to work at his game, and like you think after the first 5 or 6 years, you would think, God, is it ever going to happen? And then suddenly, arm around the shoulder for him, Eamon O'Shea, you're full forward, you're my man, and he just took off from there. Like, he just brilliant. Like, so
yeah, I've had a few people ask me the awkward thing of Owen Kelly or Seamus Callan, who would you take? And like, it's horrible. Don't even answer. But like, I was thinking that, like, Kelly is basically Messi and Callan is Ronaldo. Yeah, that's the way I looked at it.
It probably is, because Kelly was gifted. Callan had to really work on his game to become as good as he was.
Okay. Well, look, lads, that's it for the show this week. It's been great stuff. As I said, the Nenagh Guardian is in stores now. So thanks very much to Paul from Tip FM and, of course, Shane as ever. We'll see you again next week.
Cheers, lads.